Hello there, Chess TV people. This is Camus, and I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately, mainly because I just really wasn't quite sure what I have to offer anybody. I'm not a particularly strong player, and I don't have expertise in any peculiar area, with the possible exception, and I don't know if you would call it expertise, but I have played and studied a lot of strange openings over the years. And this is just purely for fun. I know the objections of strong players, and I used to study with a master, Phil Collier, from the Washington area. He basically told me to avoid all that junk, and it's like kind of like having an addiction to junk food or something like that. I just really enjoy, in an informal situation, blitz on the internet, just uncorking some of these weird openings. It's just purely for fun. I also play mainline, stronger stuff when I'm playing, over the board, serious stuff. But I guess it's one of my guilty pleasures is playing odd lines. I guess I became enamored with Michael Basman years ago. He used to produce a bunch of audio tapes that he did. Well, we did a number of them on openings and such, but the ones I enjoyed the most were his the ones he did from the British Championship, the live tapes, where he would go over the games with people like Miles and Spielman, and of course he was unafraid to play these weird lines in serious tournament play. I know Ray Keane said that had he not indulged in these crazy lines like the Grob and so on, that he could have probably been easily Grandmaster status, but he held himself back by playing these ridiculous lines. I think, I'm not sure if it was the 1986 British champion, where he played the Grob from both sides in every game. Pretty sure he lost his ass on that. I know he was very depressed afterwards. But anyway, I thought it was just a fun way to shake up the game. And so anyway, I'm prattling on here, but what I'm going to show you today is the Mousetrap opening, or the Näselwaus, I believe is called in German. And this apparently was the brainchild of Stephen Becker, whom I believe is a German player. And I think he's like the Michael Basman of Germany, or I don't know, maybe Michael Basman is the Stephen Becker of England, I'm not sure. But anyway, he also likes to say strange lines. And how I came to this line was that I was playing online, and I kept running into this one player who kept playing the Owen defense against me. 1e4, 1b6. And he would play like a non-standard kind of setup. It was sort of like a modified hippo or something, but I don't know, it just kind of bugged me. I didn't have a good line for it. I mean, I think the Owen defense is not particularly strong. If you know what you're doing, I think white can get an advantage on it. But the way he played, I don't know, for some reason just kept bamboozling me. So I was determined to meet him with some other line that would put him on the off balance rather than me being off balance. And so I looked around, and crazy opening guru Bill Wall here in the U.S., he's a Denver master, he mentioned something about this line. So anyway, I looked it up, and it looks utterly ridiculous. But actually there's something to it. If you look it up in Schiller's book, he completely pans it, but he actually doesn't follow Becker's analysis, or he apparently wasn't aware of it, and he gives an inferior line and says that this line is a joke and white gets no compensation. Well, he might be right. The line is a joke, but the line that Becker analyzed in some articles, and I think he did a monograph on it too, were certainly better than the line that Schiller quoted. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you briefly one game of Becker's. And is it Becker? I'm not sure. It's got the umlaut in there, so Becker, I would think. But perhaps one of our German friends, Gentle Whisper or Hitchhiker, can straighten me out on the pronunciation of this. So I'm going to show you one game, and a tiny little bit of the theory that he played, and I'm also going to play, show you a game that I played against my friend. All right, so here goes. It's 1e4. Let's see, are we back? Let's see, 1e4, 1e4, 1b6, 2d4, bishop b7. Okay, and normally the lines for white just basically establish either classical setup, you know, knight f3, knight c3, and so on. That's what I was doing against this guy. He would play here e6 and d6, and for some reason I just couldn't find a good way to advantage. But normally players don't play like that. They usually play b6, and then they play maybe something like e6, and they don't usually play d6, at least not right away. And another approach here is you can play f4 or c4, getting a broad center. And I think those are all viable approaches. But anyway, this line says you certainly don't need this line, but it could be fun in the right circumstances. Fun to play like a 3-minute game or something. You know, somebody's going to play the Owens defense. You maybe do something with that. But anyway, so we'll continue on. You know, here's the funny line. This looks like it's going to get into some sort of weird Trompowsky Tory attack chimera of some sort, but black, of course, grabs the pawn that's been offered there. And okay, now what does white get for this pawn? Okay, well, like I said, Schiller says you get absolutely squat all for this pawn, but I think you get a little bit. You get something for it. Now, probably the primary thing that you get from it is the fact that you just throw black off balance, and he's in positions he has no idea, he has never seen before. So, also, white gets a little bit of a development lead. You can see that the knight is going to come to c3 and gain a tempo on the bishop. So, I mean, giving up a center pawn for a development tempo, that's usually not enough. But there's a little more. Also, white tends to get weak in white squares. And in all the games, there's probably been more games played now, but of the 11 master games that were in the big database, white won 10 of those games. I'm sorry, white won something like 8, lost 1, and drew 2. But so it has a good record. I've played it 3 times, and I won all 3 games. Much to my surprise, I was just playing it really as a joke. I thought, okay, let's see how this is going to be. But despite my best efforts, I managed to win all 3 games. Okay, so what happens here? So this is the key move. This is the mousetrap move, d5, and now the bishop can't go back. He can't go back to his nice, safe little square. And one of the big points of this bishop is that he exerts pressure down this A8 H1 diagonal, and that's really sort of the main pressure in the Owens defense. So by preventing him from going back there, you get him off this diagonal, and so you can see the little compensating elements add up. Maybe not to a whole pawn, but they do add up. So that he's trapped. This is where the mousetrap name comes from, I guess, quite obviously. Okay, so white is more or less threatening knight c3. It's not much of a threat, but anyway, he's going to get a tempo, as I mentioned. And for some reason, black players invariably play this move. The alternative is h6. Excuse me. And there's another game that I could play, but I probably won't. I want to keep this relatively short. That shows h6. But really, what key for black here is that he should probably play c6 sooner or later, because this center pawn, it's a little bit analogous to the album Counter Gambit, where this pawn just proves to be annoying and gets in the way of black's development. So he should sooner or later play c6 and try to dissolve white's center. Okay, but anyway, for some reason, just about I think all 3 games that I've played, black plays f6 here. Okay, so we'll go on here. So knight c3. And now there's a couple of desperados here. The normal move, or the move that at least has been played in a few games, is bishop g6. But you may be wondering about the other possibilities. Black can also play bishop c2, the desperado. And queen c2, f takes g5, bishop to d3. And Rybka gives full compensation here. In fact, I think the score, I don't have Rybka open at the moment, but when I was looking at it before, saying that white is ahead, despite being a pawn down, was giving it a pawn and a half, 1.5 for the positional score. As it indicates to me that the white is doing just fine. And Becker says he considers this white has a clear advantage here. Okay, so all right, what if he doesn't do bishop takes c2? We can try bishop takes g2. Bishop takes g2, f takes g5, knight to h3. That pawn on g5 is going to be hard to hold on to. Knight to f6, knight to g5. You can see we've got a serious problem here on f7. g6, he's got to get this bishop out. Knight to b5. Bishop to this is analysis by Becker. Bishop to h6 and h4. Again, Rybka gives a good score for white here. I think over a pawn advantage. White has a strong attack. He's going to be able to play castles queenside. And where the heck is black going to go? Certainly castling doesn't look too good at the moment. I'm sure at some point white will be able to play h5 and cause all manner of disturbances there. So again, I would consider this to be fully compensated for white. Okay, so let's go back here to after knight c3. You can also play bishop d5. So it's odd that none of these desperado moves work. But here's the final one. Knight to d5, f takes g5, bishop to d3. Again, these white squares are going to prove monumentally weak. He plays g6. He has to stop queen to h5. That could be going to be a problem. But h4 comes, and here he can play g takes h4. Let's look at e6. This is one of the other lines. H takes g5, e takes d5, rook takes h7. Of course, if he plays rook takes, then bishop g6 recovers the material. Rook to f7, he's really forced. Bishop takes f7, king f7, queen to d5, king to g7, queen takes a8, queen to e7, king to f1, knight c6, queen c8, rook takes, and this is actually, there's rough material equality, but both Becker and Rybka consider that white is doing well here. He's got a lot of pawns on the king side. That if he can swap queens off, he probably has a pretty good endgame. Let's go back here. Okay, so that's if he plays e6 in this position. If he plays g takes h4, then we go on. Rook comes here, and there was a veiled threat there of moving the knight and winning the rook in the corner. Knight c6, knight to f3, and I believe that again, this is maybe one of black's better tries, but white has compensation for the pawn. He's going to castle queenside once he blocks up that the black diagonal, and he's going to have a kingside attack. So anyway, this is good. So anyway, going back to the game. So after knight c3, he doesn't play any of his desperados. He plays bishop to g6, and white has a number of possibilities here. Bishop f4 has been tried in a couple of games and has been successful. I won't go into the bishop f4 line, so we'll just look at this game. I want this to be reasonably short. So anyway, he goes bishop e3. Okay, and he moves here, trying to put more pressure on this annoying pawn. White backs it up, also sets up a veiled threat against the rook on a8. And here Becker says that black should definitely play c6, but he plays a6. And after this, black is in trouble. Castle's queenside, d6. He's got to get his knight out. So this again, this move, this d6 move, excuse me, is weakening the white squares. And this is kind of a theme: these weak white squares on the queen side. So anyway, he's had to move them again because he needs to get his knight out. This is why c6, the previous move, would have been better, because it would be much better if you could get that knight out on c6. Okay, knight ge2, g6, knight d4. You can see the knight is heading for c6. Also has possibilities on e6. Okay, knight to h6. These are all not the most convenient squares for developing, but that's what white has to do here. g4, it's coming at him. Knight to d7, queen h3, and now there's a threat against the knight. So he has to go back. There's a lot of groveling going on here. Bishop e2, queen c8. Look how harmonious white's position is, and look how the kind of disarray we've got here. And black is a strong player, from what I understand. I forget his rating, but I'm pretty sure he's at least a master. Okay, so queen f1, f4. According to Becker, is better. I looked at the line with Ribka, and Ribka thought both these lines are fine. So he seemed to think that the queen f1, which is the move played, was just fine. Ribka, that is. Whereas Becker thought that f4 was more incisive. But anyway, here he played bishop g7. Seems like a natural move, but Becker says that really black should have played b5 here and get some counterplay going. Black is taking a lot of time to just untangle his pieces, allowing white some time to set up strong attacking formation. You can see that knight is going to come waltzing in to c6 at some point. At least that's at least one of his threats. So bishop to g7, rook to g1, knight c5, b4. Get the hell out of here, buddy. Knight d7. Again with the groveling. I guess another possibility in this position is e5. And after d takes e6, knight takes e6, bishop to f3, rook to a7, knight to c6, ouch, rook to a8, queen e2. Becker considers white to have a clear advantage. Certainly looks that way. Okay, so we'll go back after knight to d7, f4, knight to b8. I'm kind of curious actually why. Okay, well I see why he couldn't play knight c6 before. Well, actually I'm not quite sure, but I'm kind of surprised he waited so long to play that. But now it seems less possible. Not that the black is doing well here, but okay, Becker's a stronger player than I am. I would have played knight c6 just to get that knight in there sooner. But anyway, let's just go on here. Rook to g3 was played. Again, Becker thought that bishop to f3 was better, but Ribka disagrees. So Ribka thinks this line is just fine. So we'll just go on. I'm not going to show you every possible variation here. Rook to g3, rook a7, bishop to g1, c5. This looks like black is getting something going on here, but it's not enough and it's not in time. d6, d takes c6 en passant, knight takes c6, knight takes c6, queen takes c6, knight to b5. Okay, you can see that this knight cannot be taken because of he takes b5, and bishop takes b5 wins the queen. So rook to d7 was played, rook to c3, queen to b7, knight to d6. Interesting move. Naturally, black is going to take here, but ends up being his undoing. It's a good sacrifice from Becker. All right, e takes d6, bishop takes a6. See these white squares? It's thematic. Queen to a7, rook to c8. Oh man, it's bad. Queen to e7, rook to e1, bishop to e6, and another sacrifice from Becker. Rook to e6, and actually he could have played queen to e2 there, and black resigned because bad things are about to happen here. Hang on a second. Let me see. I think it's mate in. Is it mate in 2? Wait a second. I've got. No, after he can't take the rook. If he takes the rook, and he ends up being mated. Yeah, queen e1 mates very quickly. He has to go to d5, and then bishop to c4, and that's all she wrote. Okay. All right. So that gives you some sort of brief, half-assed introduction to die Näselwaus. Excuse me. I apologize to all my German friends. I did study German years ago, but we're literally decades ago. So for all intents and purposes, I reverted to a primitive non-German speaking state. Okay, so let's look at the line. So actually, I hadn't seen this game before I played the Näselwaus. I knew the general idea was to play a d5 and get that bishop, to prevent the bishop from returning to b7, and that's all I knew when I played this game. So anyway, you'll see some of the same themes come about. This won't be very deep. Okay, so e4, b6, d4, bishop to b7, bishop to g5, and he plays f6 right away. It works out about the same. I think it transposes into one of the other games here. Bishop to h4. Now he takes the pawn, and now I play d5. Excuse me. So, c6. He plays c6 right away, but of course he's got to deal with the threat knight to c3. So, in standard fashion, he goes back to g6, and now, excuse me, already trying to exploit the white squares. White reinforces the pressure down the long diagonal. Someday hopes to do something with that rook on a8 vis-a-vis the queen on f3. He moves bishop to f7. So rather than developing black's pieces with pawn takes pawn here, white plays castles, and that way, if black decides to castle, if black decides to take off on d5, then it'll be white that'll end up with a centralized piece. This was an important concept in chess of looking at the end result of even trades and seeing where the pieces end up. I'm sure most players are familiar with that concept. But anyway, so use the tempo for development rather than for black's development. C takes d5. Perhaps he should have just maintained the pressure here. Not sure. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to fire up Ribka and see if he has any improvements for black here. Okay. I guess I have it open in another window. Never mind. We'll just move on here. Okay. So C takes D5. Knight takes D5. Bishop takes D5. Okay. And you can see here we have this this threat against the rook. So he blocks it. Knight C6. Bishop C4 leads to other problems. White squares on the other side. Now without his white squared bishop, he's really it's really not good. I really think that taking the knight on D5 was probably a mistake. So E6 seems like the logical move, and then he's got a problem on the other side after Queen H5. I guess he could play G6 here, but you know. No, he really can't. He could play G6, but sooner or later, White will be able to play Bishop takes E6 because of the pin on the D pawn here. So he plays King to E7. I guess he's looking at that, and then here we go back onto this this lovely diagonal here. Queen to C7, getting away from the pins and shoring up the knight. Bishop to G3. Ouch, that's not good. Okay, so what does he do here? He should have probably played something like E5 or even Queen to B7. Is that possible? Yeah. Well, anyway, this move was not good. He forgot about the rook in the corner. So anyway, we'll just decided to trade down here before going much further, and we took the rook, and it's pretty much over from this point. But Queen takes C4, but you know, White's attack rages on here. Queen C6, Knight to F3. This pawn's looking very dodgy here at E5. He's got to defend on D7. He's got lots of problems here. Actually, insoluble problems. E4. Knight to E5, and somehow he was so worried about me taking on D7 that he overlooked that I was attacking his queen. So that's what happens, you know, in chess. I mean, sometimes having the initiative, aside from the concrete benefit that you get from having an attack or whatever, or compensation for your material. Often you get the strong psychological compensation too. And when somebody's being pressed all the time, it's not pleasant. I'm sure we've all had the experience. When somebody's attacking you, you start sweating, and sometimes you're going to overlook something. You just get discombobulated. So I think this is the case here, where he's got multiple threats. Let's see. Like I said, there's probably, I'm sure there's a better move that he could have played. Moving the queen would have been good. But he did have to worry about these threats on d7. Maybe knight to f6. Let's go back a second. Instead of e4, maybe knight to f6 would have at least shored up d7, and then after the knight takes the pawn on e5, can move the queen somewhere sensible. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I mean, obviously he's not doing well, but but from a material perspective, the game is not quite lost. Maybe from a positional standpoint, but if you manage to get his pieces out. But it's like I'm saying, the psychological pressure of being first of all throwing off being out of the positions you normally enjoy from playing a pet opening such as the Owens defense, and then it just puts you in a state of imbalance, and you're kind of reeling from move to move. And so my opponent, he just basically collapsed here. Knight to e5, king to f6, and now he noticed that I'm taking his queen, and after d6 he resigned. So anyway, it's an entertaining, not particularly deep game, but I do think that after having played this opening a couple of times, that it's certainly better than Schiller says it is. And there is an opening monograph. If anybody's interested, put it in the comments, and I'll either post it online or find the address of where you can find this article by Becker. It's a PDF file. I think it has about 11 games in it, something like that. No, I'm sorry. It has about two or three games and some theoretical stuff. And anyway, it's certainly worth checking out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you don't play it, at least maybe as black, you know how to avoid it. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Take care.